Anyway, I am absolutely thrilled to introduce our speaker this evening, Anna Harding, presenter and host of the Running Channel. Thank you so much for joining us at the Trouble Club.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Ellie. I genuinely was very touched that you got in touch with me, and yeah, I'm really honoured to be here tonight. And I hope that some of what I say is coherent at least, and some of it may inspire you guys if you're thinking about getting into running or wanting to push your limits a bit.
I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever. We've just got a few people coming in. There are some seats just round the corner there. So tell us, to kind of begin with, how you got into running.
So my running journey started in 2017. I was never the sporty kid at school. I was the kind of person that would forget my PE kit and then have to do it in my underwear or the spare kit, or it would be cross-country morning and I'd go hide in the toilet. So I hated running. I hated sport. I did a bit of synchronized swimming as a teenager, just as a bit of a social something to sort of do, really. But yeah, running started for me in 2017. So I was 29 years old, and a friend of mine was attacked on a night out. And he was punched from behind by a man who, when he punched Rob fell down to the ground, cracked his head, and didn't regain consciousness. And Rob died on that night out. He was 29 years old as well. And as that sort of tragedy sort of rippled through our friendship group and our community, there was a lot of talk about, well, what can we do to remember Rob's honor? And he was a real go-getter in life. He had his own business at the age of 26. He was real sort of go out and get it. So we coined the phrase be more Bav, and be more Bav, Bav being his surname, his nickname, sort of meant different things to different people in our friendship group. And to me, be more Bav was just go and do something that scares you. Go and do something that you've thought, I could never do that, and do it in Bav's memory. So I decided I'll run a marathon before I'm 30, because I watched the London Marathon on TV. I had always thought I could never do that. That is insane. And so yeah, I signed up to Edinburgh Marathon and thought, I'm going to do this in memory of Bav. I ended up raising some money for a charity that was close to his heart for it as well. And then I got bitten by the running bug, and I haven't stopped running since.
What was it like going out for that first run when you decided you were going to run a marathon? So you thought, okay, I'm going to run a marathon in like a couple of months' time. First run, here we go, 26 miles in 1K. It'll be no problem.
Yeah, so I signed up to Edinburgh at the end of 2016, and I thought, right, it's in May. So how long? I was Googling, how long do you need to train for a marathon? And everywhere was like 16 weeks. I was like, okay, right, okay. So I'll start training early 2017. It'll be fine. So I was living in Yorkshire at the time. It was really cold in January in Yorkshire. It was snowing on the first morning that I went out for a run. And the first run that I had to do was 3 miles. And I was like, 3 miles? That sounds really far. Like, I used to drive to the shop to go get milk that was like a mile away. So I was like, right, okay, I'll get all my running kit on. And I was commuting to Newcastle at the time and getting a train in the morning. And so it was 6 o'clock in the morning. It was pitch black. It was snowing. And I remember getting about a mile in and thinking, how have I got 25 more miles in me on race day? This is ridiculous. But I did it. And the feeling of finishing that first run was so worthwhile. Like, the runner's high that you get from it was, I was like, this is a really lovely feeling. I'm hooked. Let's do it again. Can I go tomorrow? So although it was miserable to start with, yeah, the first run, I do remember being that sort of just that hook that just got me in.
Absolutely. And like, what was it like kind of doing that marathon, crossing the finish line for the first time? Because it's something that runners kind of describe like as euphoric.
Yeah, so crossing the finish line at Edinburgh Marathon, long story short, I had picked up a bit of an injury unbeknownst to me during training. So I'd had a bit of a sore knee, and I thought, I've been running a lot. Of course, my knees are going to be sore. And everyone always says, running's bad for your knees. Technically, it's not. There are a lot of studies out there that show that it's not, by the way. And so because my training at the point of feeling this knee pain then started to taper off ready for race day, I never felt that knee pain again. But at 16 miles of the race, it reared its ugly head again. And it was an IT band injury, which is really common in new runners. And it's something that does kind of show up the longer you run. So I'd got to 16 miles of the race. My mum was there cheering me on. And I remember getting to her where she was cheering me on. And I just hugged her and I cried. And I was like, I've never been in pain like this before. I don't think I can do it. And she had deep heat with her that I'd given her. I was like, right, here's some deep heat, some apple juice and some gels, because these are the things I'm going to need. And she dropped to her knees and slathered my leg in this deep heat. And she was like, you can do this. You're my girl. Off you go. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it. And it was like a little out and back bit. So from 16 miles back round to about 20, you do 4 miles on your own. And I came back to 20 miles and mum was still there. And she was like, how are you? I was like, I can do this. Because I just kept saying to myself the whole time, I was like, I could do this. And then the final 10K, the final 6 miles of the race, just passed by in a complete and utter blur. I don't really remember it, but I do remember I was listening to my headphones and they were like on a cord plugged into my phone, because we didn't really have Bluetooth headphones for running at that point. And Ed Sheeran, Castle on the Hill, came on in my headphones. I crossed the finish line. I was like, yeah, this is amazing. And then when I stopped, I was like, my legs don't work anymore. So yeah, the pain afterwards was quite severe. I didn't walk particularly well. We did a bus tour of Edinburgh the next day, and then I just went back to bed. But yeah, the crossing of the line did just feel so incredible. And I remember my mum saying at 16 miles as well, you're doing this for Rob, he would be so proud. And I was like, I've got to finish this.
Do you remember what your first time was?
I do. 4 hours and 7 minutes.
I mean, that's pretty impressive for a first marathon. You got close to that 4 hour mark.
Yeah. So I'm a really competitive person with myself and other people. Actually, I'm not allowed to play mini golf with my family. But the whole way through training, I thought, well, maybe I could do a sub-4 marathon. Everyone talks about this sub-4 marathon. This is supposedly a really good time. And my paces sound like I could do that. So I thought, right, okay, well, in the back of my mind, maybe I could do that. But my goal is actually just to finish. And I was on for very much a sub-4 up until that 16-mile point. So the problem was doing a marathon in 4 hours and 7 minutes the first time round, when you really wanted to go under 4 hours, means that you have to do another marathon. But, until you get sub-4.
But you're now, I think, 9 marathons down.
Yes, that's right.
9
yes.
marathons down. And how many more have you got planned for this year?
So in about 12 days time, I'm flying over, well, earlier than that, but in 12 days time, I'll be running Boston Marathon.
Which is really impressive, because you have to qualify technically.
You do technically have to qualify. I was really fortunate in the sense that Adidas are a headline sponsor of the Boston Marathon, and I did a video series for the Running Channel last year where I was aiming to qualify. For the second time out of my 9 marathons, I ended up with an injury during this marathon and scored my personal worst time trying to qualify for Boston. But Adidas was so happy and impressed with the series of sort of getting people to, chase hard goals, and said that they'd like me to go along to do it. So I'm really fortunate that I do get the chance to actually do Boston, but I will qualify.
For anyone who's not sure, Boston is kind of iconic. I think because it's basically downhill most of the way.
It's net downhill. However, from approximately mile 19 to mile 24, there are 4 major hills that get gradually bigger.
It's not quite a cop-out.
It's not a cop-out. It doesn't count for world records, though.
Because of the fact that it's net downhill.
Because it's net downhill. So the first 4 miles are downhill. Great.
You did that series when you were kind of looking to qualify for Boston. Is really iconic. It was one of the kind of, the episodes that I remember really vividly from the Running Channel. And it is because it was a real struggle. It was really because you'd done all the training and you were so close to, making it and getting, because you need to get it in under 3:30 in order to technically qualify for Boston, which is an unbelievably tricky time to get. I mean, the world record is, well, it's sub 2 hours,
but
well, yeah, exactly. So it's, it's a really difficult time to get under. And yeah, you did have an injury, and it was really, watching you go through that. Well, what was it like filming that, and what was going through your head when you had to be on camera, when the realization came that you weren't going to do this thing that you had kind of been set up to do?
Yeah, I think so anyone who has actually seen the videos will know that I've cried a lot in them. So there were a lot of tears shed, especially during the marathon itself, because it was painful. It was really hard putting yourself out there to say, this is my goal specifically, is to qualify, but then also we have nearly 500,000 subscribers on the running channel, and those people are watching you. The majority of them are cheering you on and are supporting you, but you get comments all the time that are like, well, I've seen some of your training on Strava and I don't think that you're going to do it. And you've got your own self-doubt, and then you've got other people's sort of, expertise being thrown into the mix as well. And so it is a really, really tricky task to put yourself out there to say, this is what I'm going for. And yeah, I think the whole series was harder than any series I've ever done, because one of the series that I've done on the running channel was documenting a 260-kilometer ultra run, which I'm sure you'll ask me about in a bit. But arguably trying to run 26 miles, so 42 kilometers in one go, was harder than doing that ultra because of the time pressures. Whereas when you're doing the ultra, you're out there battling your mind and your body, and with the time qualification, you've just got that hanging over you the whole time. So I found it quite a lot of pressure to run for time. And I've since spoken, the guys at the running channel are so supportive of everything that I do. And I used to be a full-time employee with them, and now I do freelance stuff for them. So they've always supported me through everything that I do, and they knew what a big ask it was, and supported me every step of the way for the challenge to get a BQ, because they knew that it was a tough ask and going to be really quite tough on me mentally as well.
It was incredible. And just the way that you talked yourself through it and saying this will always be a win, it doesn't matter what happens at the end of this, is I made myself proud, I've completed a marathon. That's never ever going to be something that you should ever be anything but proud of yourself. And it was just such an emotional journey watching it through, I have to say. And I was just so pleased that you put it all out. I mean, it would have been so easy to say, oh, I don't want that to be shown, or we'd rather not, or it would have been, you could have said that, but to put it out there as the raw of what happened. And this happens in life, these things happen.
That's absolutely true. And the thing is as well, so many people who watch the running channel, or so many people who are running marathons, if they haven't done it before, they are looking to me to make it okay when perhaps they have a terrible training run. And it is entirely okay to have a terrible training run. Not all marathon training is ever perfect tick box stuff. We're not elite athletes. This is not our job to do this. And you can go out and a run can feel great, and you can go out and a run can feel absolutely awful. And it depends on your mood, how well you slept, how well you fueled. Did you have a drink last night? Are you on your period? Like, there are so many variables when it comes to marathon training that it is okay to feel absolutely rubbish on a run. And that's what I wanted to show to people. It's not just the glossy, oh, look at me, I'm going to go and do this and I'm going to tick off this goal. It's like, this is really hard. I'm going to work really hard and I'm going to try my best.
There was an incredible moment during the Berlin Marathon where there were some supporters who were there. You had Smile a Mile, which is what you say when you're running, and they had kind of team, and you didn't know who they were, but they had just known that you were going to be running and they'd shown up to support you. How did that feel when you saw them?
So that was a real ugly cry moment. I mean, I literally broke down. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. So I saw this sign in the distance, and I was running with one of our camera people, Freddie, in the race itself.
Poor Freddie just has to run a marathon. And
yeah, well, you say poor old Freddie. Freddie is an incredible runner. Freddie could knock out a 2.5-hour marathon if he wanted to.
Oh, right, okay. So it's not like you have some poor cameraman kind of trying to keep up with you the whole time.
He was literally poor old Freddie because I was slowing him down. I think he wanted to go and have a great run. So Freddie was sort of running next to me, and he'd been putting up with all of my, I'm in so much pain. And I saw this sign ahead that said Smile a Mile. And throughout the series, I'd been working with a sports psychologist, Josie, who actually is a member of the Trouble Club. She messaged me to say that she was sorry she couldn't make it. And we'd sort of coined this mantra, a smile a mile, because it's scientifically proven that when you smile, when you're in pain and when you're running, it actually makes the perceived effort level less. So that's why you'll see people, elite runners like Eliud Kipchoge, smiling his way through 2-hour marathons.
He's not actually happy.
No. Well, no, actually, I think he actually is. He is the happiest man I've ever met and seen coverage of. But yeah, so smiling receives the rate of perceived effort. So JC was like, look, when it gets hard, just think, smile a mile. Have you smiled this mile? Smile at a passerby, smile at a volunteer, just smile, and you'll forget about the pain that you're going through. And I saw this sign. I was like, Freddie, you need to film this bit. So he ran up ahead, and as I got closer, this couple had another sign on them that said Team Anna, and I just couldn't believe it. And I ran over to them, and I was like, this isn't real. Like, what's happening? And they're like, come on, Anna, you can do this. We're here to support you. So I think they emailed afterwards so that I knew who they were, and they're local to Berlin, and so they'd come out to support. And I think they perhaps didn't know quite how severe my injury was going into the marathon, because I think they'd been hanging around for a while.
You actually had millions out there coming to support you, and they'd all gone home.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, the final words from Porlox, who was there, he said, just get it done. And I was like, right, I'm going to get it done now. I need to get this done now. That was it. I'd met them at 3.5 hours of running. So I'd been running for 3.5 hours. So it all felt really poignant and really sort of unreal that it had happened.
And the crowds do make a massive difference when it comes to those kinds of races.
Yeah, for sure. Berlin isn't the best supported race.
Take that, Germany.
Yeah. London, on the other hand, wall of sound. Best one yet, New York. That's like 6 people deep most of the way. But yeah, Berlin isn't the best supported. And so it was kind of really sort of thinned out crowd at that point. And so seeing them was just amazing.
What's your favorite thing you've ever seen written on a sign as you've been going around a marathon?
Are we allowed to use swear words?
Yes, totally. Yeah. This is the Trouble Club.
So one that gets used a lot is you're running better than the government. No matter what country you're running in, it's always you're running better than the government. And also don't be shit. is another good one. Oh, and pain is French for bread.
Oh, so yeah. So if you're in pain, have some bread.
Yeah.
And kind of, so, it's not different. Obviously, it's the same kind of vein, but, you touched on the 280 kilometer race, which is it about 280 kilometers? I can't even really quite imagine what that is. And it's probably from here to, I don't know, Birmingham or somewhere like that, or further.
It's about 100 miles to Birmingham. The 160 kilometers is 100 miles.
Your life must be just in kilometers to miles, back and forth, miles to kilometers. What is it? A friend of mine
actually put on her Instagram story today, she was like, do you think I ought to measure in kilometers or miles? And I was like, you need a third option for both.
Yeah. But so you took on this challenge, but it wasn't the first ultra marathon you did. What was it like stepping up from doing a marathon to doing an ultra marathon?
Again, it involved a lot of crying. So I did my first ultra marathon the year after I'd done my first marathon. And I remember I was at the cinema with my mum, and I'd been eyeing this ultra marathon up, and it was along the South Downs Way, and it was 54 miles, so about 80 kilometers. And I was like, right, okay, that's not quite, what is that? Not quite double marathon? I'm not very good at maths, by the way, despite doing miles and kilometers. There, yeah, 42 kilometers. It's about double marathon. That's right. So I was like, okay, well, you've got all day to do it. So it took me 4 hours to do a marathon, double it, add a little bit, 10 hours of running. It's in June. There's lots of sunlight during June. It'll be fine. And I was at the cinema with mum. I was like, shall I sign up? Shall I not? Shall I sign up? And she got me a glass of wine, had a glass of wine. And I was like, shall I sign up? And I was like, yeah, sign up. So I signed up for it. It's called Race to the King. And you run from Arundel to Winchester, and you finish on the steps of Winchester Cathedral. And the whole reason why I wanted to do that one was because the South Downs Way was my granddad's favourite walking route, and he sadly passed away. And I wanted to raise some money for the hospice that took care of him in his final days. So I signed up for an ultra marathon, and it was interesting. So training, everyone is really interested about, like, how do you train for an ultra marathon? And it's actually not too different from training for a marathon, and you can kind of make of it what you want. There's no point in training to run 54 miles. you wouldn't run 54 miles before you run a 54-mile race, just like you wouldn't run 26 miles before you would run a 26-mile race, which seems bonkers, but it works. So there was a lot of like back-to-back days where I'd go out on a Saturday and a Sunday for like 10-mile runs just to sort of run on those tired legs. But I remember when I got to 30 miles of the ultra, my mum, by the way, is my biggest supporter, and she has been so amazing throughout all of this ridiculous running journey. So she came to support me, but she was like, this is a great day out. It's sunny. It's like the longest day. I can go and have a picnic in the South Downs. Wonderful. And I'd like marked off all of these places where she could come and meet me. And 30 miles was like the big one, because I was like, I'll probably want to change my shoes because my feet will be really hot, and I might want to change my vest because I'll be really sweaty. So she took like my drop bag basically of stuff. And I got to 30 miles and she was supposed to meet me at the bottom of this monster hill. And if anybody knows the South Downs Way, it's called Butser Hill. It's really a massive hill. And I was like, right, well, I'll meet you at the bottom and then I can refresh, run up the hill and carry on my way. And I got to the bottom of the hill. I'd used up all of my water because I knew I was going to see her. And I had no more snacks left because I knew I was going to see her. And I got to the bottom of this hill and I was like, where is she? So I had my phone with me. So I rang her and I was like, hey, Mum, I'm here. Where are you? And she was like, well, we're here. We've got a picnic set up. I was like, great. Where? She was like, well, where you said. And I was like, are you at the top of the hill or the bottom of the hill? And she was like, well, we didn't really go up a hill because the car park where they'd parked was on the top of the hill. So they hadn't had to go up the hill. So anyway, it transpired that she was at the top of the hill. So I death marched up this hill crying. This bloke was like, do you want some water? Are you okay? Can I help you? And I was like, my mum's supposed to be down here. So running an ultra is a bit like being a toddler. Like you do regress into like tantrums and crying and feeling rubbish, and just being a little bit petulant. And I had warned her that I was going to be like this because you do lose your mind a little bit. So I got to the top of the hill and I was like, you weren't there. Anyway, calmed down a little bit, had a little bit of a picnic, changed my stuff, had some water, and I was all good to go again. But it felt so strange to have run the furthest that I had ever run and know that I still had another 24 miles to run.
That's something to get your head around, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's quite a wall.
I think that was another moment where I went, I can't do this anymore. And she was like, your granddad would be proud. I was like, okay, I'll carry on.
They brought a picnic, for goodness sake. You have to finish. There's more wine to be drunk. But still, from doing 50, 60 miles in one day, like you say, you can do it in a day, make a day of it, it's a Sunday. Going from that to then multi-day, where you're talking about hundreds of miles, how on earth did you get into doing the Tribe Run for Love, and kind of what made you decide that, this is the next obvious step? I mean, I'm guessing the next stop beyond this is like 500, 1,000 miles in one go.
Crossing countries. I'd quite like to do that. So I ended up doing Tribe Run for Love. So Tribe is a company that makes sort of vegan nutrition, and they have a charity attached to them called the Tribe Freedom Foundation, and the Tribe Freedom Foundation raises money for charities who fight modern slavery. And so they support people like Ella's, who provide safe houses for women and girls who have been saved from modern slavery. They had done 2 previous massive runs. The founders of Tribe had done the first one, the original Run for Love, where they ran from Croatia to the Ukraine, and then the second one had taken place, and then the third one was coming up in 2019. And I happened to be working for the Running Channel at that point, and the Running Channel was based in the same offices as the PR company for Tribe. And so they were looking for journalists to go and run the half marathon. That's the last day of this sort of epic adventure. You run a half marathon around a volcano. Sounded amazing. And so the PR company sort of stuck their heads over and said, does anyone from the Running Channel want to do a half marathon around a volcano? I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And then sort of the more they told me about it, the more I was like, what's the rest of it? And they're like, well, it's 260 kilometers in 6 days. It's quite far. And I was like, I could do that. And I have this like way of just being like, I could do that. And then realizing when it gets to the point, like, I've really bitten off a lot more than I think I can chew. But that's what keeps me motivated. And that's what makes me carry on doing these ridiculous things, is that I say yes to things and I worry about the actual stuff like later on when you're actually doing it and you're like knee deep in cow poo on the middle of a mountain in the Azores and you've done 60 kilometers already of a 78-kilometer day. So yeah, I kind of just went, yeah, I could do that. And I don't think I really appreciated at the time, one, how far it was, or two, what a multi-day ultra involves, or three, like whether I was capable of doing it or not. I just said yes. And yeah, that's kind of how I ended up in that mess of doing it.
And I have to say, watching the videos back for the Azores, it wasn't as sunny as I thought. I thought, the Azores is just off the coast of Africa, isn't it? It will be wonderful and gorgeous weather. And it would just seemed a lot of mud like the whole time.
So much mud, so much cow poo. So the Azores, it was very humid and the temperatures were pretty good. But actually, arguably, I'm glad it wasn't too sunny. Like, I'm almost a little bit worried. So I'm doing the follow-up run for Love 4 in May in Croatia. So I'm almost a little bit
Hopefully
worried.
not running to Ukraine this time.
No. Just around Croatia this time. So I'm almost a little bit worried that might be a bit too hot, because actually the ideal running temperature is about 11 degrees C.
So, right.
Yeah.
I suppose that depends on the person, but yeah.
That's where world records are made, on marathon day, 11 degrees C.
Oh, amazing. And what was it like doing the marathon? How does a multi-stage ultra marathon even work?
So multi-days vary depending on which one it is, for example. So there's like an epic one that a lot of people have heard of that's quite commercial, called the Marathon des Sables. That crosses the desert. No, thank you. You
not 11 degrees in the desert.
Definitely not. I run really hot as well. I don't run very well in hot weather. I get very hot very quickly. So no. That you also have to be you have to be self-sufficient entirely for Marathon des Sables. You carry everything with you, everything that you're going to sleep in, everything that you're going to eat, all of your utensils, literally everything. I am not a light packer, so I think that just rules me out of that for a start. For Run for Love, you are less self-sufficient, but there's camping elements. You don't have to put up your own tent though, so it's actually quite a nice sort of chill, get back to the campsite and your tent's already up. You don't have to carry all of your stuff for all of the days with you on the run either. Your bag gets transported from campsite to campsite, so that's a huge help, because it means that you are able to refresh your clothes for those people who like their home comforts, and having a nice clean sports bra on. That's quite nice.
And what was it like crossing the finish line after 280 kilometers?
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. The last day was the half marathon day around a volcano, which was very lovely. However, I'd run quite a few kilometers before that. And there was a point, so the basic layout of it is that you do it in 6 days, and the first 3 days are sort of marathon-ish distance. Then the 4th day is what they call the long stage, which is 78 kilometers ish. And then you do another marathon day, and then you do a half marathon day. The marathon day, the penultimate marathon day, was long, very long. We took it very slowly. There's obviously lots of hills, there's lots of fields, there's lots of difficult terrain that you've got to traverse as well. So this is not like PB marathon territory in the slightest. But I have no idea how, but on the final day, I just got this second wind that was like,
well, no, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th wind.
Yeah, what do you call it? Sixth
wind.
That was like, well, it's only 21 kilometers. I'm literally, if I can blitz this out, the longest I'm going to be out today is 3 hours. Then I can get in that cold lake at the end, have a nice cold beer and a bacon sandwich, and know that I'm done. And so I really legged it on the last day, and I don't know where it came from, but your body kind of like adapts as the week goes on and actually gets used to running and is like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now. Yeah, fine. Because in the first couple of days, you're like, ooh, my legs are very sore. But then, yeah, on that final day, I was like, just get it done.
And what do you think your kind of, I don't know, your 28-year-old self would have thought of you finishing a 280 kilometer, casually knocking out a half marathon on a a multi-day stage ultra?
Never in a million years. So my background is in radio, and I used to work in radio up in Newcastle, and because of the sort of link to the Great North Run in Newcastle, which is the half marathon, I'd run the Great North Run a couple of times before I would say that my running journey started. I say that that was before my running journey started because I didn't really train for the Great North Run. I kind of turned up, did it, and then really hurt for a week afterwards. Not recommended. And so being that 28-year-old sat in Newcastle, I remember I was with an ex-boyfriend at the time. Well, he was my boyfriend at the time, ex-boyfriend now. We were watching a documentary on Netflix called the Barkley Marathons, which is about a crazy race in America that you have no way markers telling you where to go. You have to do laps of a crazy course that's covered in thorns, and you have to.
Is that the one where they have to? It's like an escape from a prison. That's what it's based on.
That's what it's based on. Yeah. And you have to find pages of books that match it. So if you're bib number 55, you have to find page 55 of these books. So it's a bit like orienteering and racing, but you're not allowed GPS or navigation. You just kind of get on with it. It's savage. So I was watching this documentary back when I was not a runner, and I remember saying to my boyfriend at the time, I'd love to do something like that. And then he said, you couldn't even run a marathon. And that kind of is this whole why I'm here now, because I'm like, yeah, I can.
Do you ever fancy kind of being like, hey, you said I'd never run a marathon. I just did a multi-stage ultra marathon.
No, because you know what? I feel that inner smugness, and I'm like, told you so.
I might just ask Claire, might you be able to just ask them if they could turn the music off? That might be good. I mean, as nice as it is to have some kind of background atmosphere. One of the other completely, I mean, obviously a multi-stage ultra marathon is hard and challenging in a million and one different ways, but something that I'm not sure it almost seems as challenging, despite not taking as much time, was that you did a backyard marathon during COVID. You ran a marathon in your back garden. And we're not talking about like acres. It was in a 20 meter garden. You ran a marathon in 20 meters.
It's my mum's back garden. So I bubbled with my mum and her other half during COVID because I was living.
I love that London. Bubbled. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah,
bubbled.
Wasn't that so nice? Yeah. Bubbled up with them. So I was living on my own in London, and so I was fortunate enough that we ended up. I was at hers before they locked us down, and when they locked us down, I was like, oh, well, I'm just gonna stay here if that's okay. And so yeah, there was the time. Do you remember the crazy times when they were like, you can only go out once a day? So I was like, well, look, I want to carry on doing my running. I want to, and I was still running around. She's in a very rural area where we literally saw no one anyway, but I was still able to go out and run, and that was great. But I kind of wanted to encourage people to stay at home as much as they could and prove in a way that you could still do challenges and crazy things at home. So, we on the running channel, we made home workouts that were no equipment, minimal space, friendly. Not so friendly if you had downstairs neighbors, because there was quite a lot of
although
jumping.
I've seen that since then, if you live in an upstairs flat, workouts.
Not so much. So one Sunday I decided that I would run a marathon in my mum's 20-meter backyard. I actually think it's not my personal worst time anymore, because I think I got that in Berlin. So yeah, it took me just over 5 hours of just going backwards and forwards. But the thing was, I had to do quite a lot of maths to work out, because your GPS is not going to fix on for that shorter distance. I did use my running watch to record it, but I was auto lapping. So manual lapping. So every time I did one lap, I would lap it and then I'd do another lap. But I didn't realize, because funnily enough, I've never done more than 1,000 laps of anything on my watch, that my watch only has the capability of 3 numbers, not 4. So once it got to 999 and I pressed lap again, I couldn't then see, it just stayed on 999. so my mum was at home and I was like, get me some paper. So she got some paper to stick on the gate and the wall that I was running between, and a highlighter pen that I was running with in my hand, so that I could manually then tally all of the laps that I was doing, because you absolutely can't remember all of those laps. And I ended up doing an interview while I was running as well on like Radio 5 Live. It was a great day. It was really fun.
Did you not get kind of dizzy?
Well, no, because it is literally like there and back. So rather than running around in a circle, so my mum's back garden was literally like a path that went from the decking to the back gate, and then like a tiny bit of grass there. So it was just up, down, up, down.
Oh my goodness. And you got, yes, as you said, you got to do interviews. Do you remember how many laps it was in the end?
1,977.
Oh my goodness.
You don't forget things like that.
No. 1,100. Oh goodness me. Oh god. I mean, but surely like just the turning probably would have been almost the biggest calorie burner of the whole thing.
Probably. Yeah. Oh, and I did try and make sure that I was turning different ways each side, because I feel like it would be bad on one hip if I was only going the one way.
Totally. And when you were with the running channel, obviously that was a kind of crazy challenge you did. I mean, obviously there was the ultra marathons, but what was the kind of craziest challenge kind of beside those two that, you know, you thought was a really fun thing to do while you were a presenter?
Oh, that's a great question. We've done some really great challenges. The really nice thing about the running channel is that we have such a range of abilities of presenters as well. So we've got like super fast females. We've got the slower females, the average runners like me. We've got super fast. We've got an Olympian, Andy Badley. And then just sort of everything in between. So what's been really nice is doing the challenges where it's almost a level playing field. So I can race an Olympian and have the chance to win. The challenge that I'm thinking of at the moment, I didn't actually win against Andy, but we did a handicap race. So this is something that anyone can do with any running friends of any ability. So you take your current 5K time and then you set people off staggered based on the difference of their 5K time and your 5K time. And the idea is that you'll then all get to the end of the 5K roughly at the same time, and then there'll be like a scrum for the finish. So that was really fun to do.
Also, and you've done like Strava shapes, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. So like drawing out different,
not anything
pictures.
dirty.
No. Drawing out different pictures using GPS. So GPS art. I can't remember what one I did now. Was it a pineapple? No, it was a giraffe. I did a giraffe around Victoria Park, which is quite nice. It was almost ready made because there was like some ins and outs along the canal. And we did a scavenger hunt as well, which was really cute. So that's something that you can get kids involved in too. I absolutely love any challenge that can get anybody else involved. It's, you know, running is for everyone, and it should be fun as well. So I think so many times, you know, we talk about, you know, training and like hitting goals and PBs and stuff, but actually the fun of it is super important to remember as well. So like the scavenger hunt was find a den in the woods, find an acorn, and just basically be at one with nature and enjoy your local trails and stuff. So that was really lovely.
And as you kind of touched on there, this idea that running is completely for everyone. And I really don't mean to say, you know, this isn't meant to be in this one anywhere, and like, but obviously when people imagine like an ultra marathoner, they'll kind of imagine this like insanely, you know, kind of tiny, maybe incredibly tall individual. And you know, you aren't necessarily.
Oh
yeah,
that's in the most delicate way. I'll save you the embarrassment. That's not me.
but that's the incredible thing. And you know, so what's it been like getting out there and showing that, you know, as you said, you know, I wasn't labeled an athletic kid when I was a child, and that can put people off for life. That PE report that says that you're just not a natural athlete. You know, what would you say to people that were labeled that at school?
I mean, hopefully I feel like schools probably have to be a little bit more careful now these days, don't they? Go a bit easy on the kids, but you don't have to be a runner from the beginning. I think the thing is, there are so many amazing runners out there at the moment who have come to running in later life. There's an incredible ultra athlete called Carla Molinaro. She runs for Hoka, and she was in the army, so she was pretty fit to start with. She is now absolutely smashing 100-mile races and doing like ultra trail Mont Blanc races in Chamonix, and just an incredible ultra runner. But she came to it in her 30s. And actually, I think more and more people are coming to running later in life. The endurance side of things, actually, people are getting faster the older they get when it comes to endurance stuff. Not necessarily doing like 400 800 meter track stuff, no. But yeah, the endurance side, and also the ultra endurance side, women are doing so much better than men at that side of things as well. There's limited scientific reasoning behind it, but anecdotally it tends to be that we have a better pain threshold.
And of course you get, I mean, I can't quite remember her name, but the woman who set the record on the kind of spine of the UK while she was breastfeeding at the same time, and she would stop to pump milk while and I'm not sure if that maybe helped her be more organized about when she was going to stop and take breaks, and that maybe helped, but seeing that, what I thought was so inspirational.
Yeah, Jasmine Parrish, she is an incredible athlete. She actually did the crazy Berkeley marathons I mentioned earlier as well this year. And she and Sophie Power, who, again, there was an incredible image that was released of her breastfeeding her son at the Ultra Trail Mont Blanc Ultra. You know, they're doing incredible things for inspiring women to show that, you know, if you are a mother and you know, you want to carry on doing these things, that it is possible. I think the difficulty being is that, you know, it is hard to do these things, and like logistically there is so much more effort that goes in for women like Jasmine and Sophie. Speaking as someone who doesn't have children, you know, I can't relate to that, but I can be thoroughly in awe of them, which I totally am.
And as you kind of mentioned earlier, when you came to the running channel and, you know, you suddenly, you know, you were on this massive platform and, you know, you were approached by incredible people who, you know, have incredibly nice things to say, but you obviously do have to experience the trolls. And what is it like dealing with them, and how do you kind of handle those, given that it's something experienced by so many women, mostly online?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the best person to go to for advice with dealing with trolls, because the main advice is don't feed the trolls, so just don't rise to them. I, however, am quite outspoken, and if I feel like I've been served an injustice, then I will try and put it right. However, that said, you know, actually the trolling, you know, going back to what you're saying about how people envisage, you know, an ultra runner looking, or, you know, any kind of runner looking, and I don't fit that mold, has been a theme of so many comments on YouTube videos that we've done on the running channel, in my Instagram, direct messages in my Twitter. Like, some of the stuff that people say is absolutely vile. Someone sent a Twitter DM the other week that was like, you know, you'd look so much better if you lost 10 stone. I was like, if I lost 10 stone, I'd be dead. And he was like, that's not a bad thing. You know, you literally do get that most days of the week. And it can be incredibly soul destroying. And it was, you know, I make no secrets about having struggled with my mental health, especially over probably the last 4 or 5 years since running. I wouldn't say it's down to running, and also since joining the running channel. So my previous roles in radio were very much in the media. You know, I had a massive following on social media, but I wasn't putting myself out there as I am in this sort of running channel role. And people weren't so much bothered by my success, I would say. And so I think it comes down to, when you do put yourself out there and when you are sort of exposed to a wider audience, it did become all encompassing. And, you know, I was talking to a friend about this evening, that if 95% of people like what you do and 5% of them don't, you'll always hang on to that 5% of what they've, like, what that 5% has said. And that 95% of people that like what you do, maybe 5% of people will tell you that they like what you do, and the other 90% will be blasé about it. They'll be like, oh yeah, that was nice. And they won't feel like they have to say anything about it. But you will always hold on to the 5% of people that said something horrendous. So as I sort of said before, the running channel have been so supportive of me. And actually, when it was at its worst with the comments, they helped me through with counseling, with therapy, to talk it through and just sort of get to the bottom of why it bothered me. And now it's taken a bit of, you know, work on myself, but it's got to the point where I'm like, it's none of my business what people think of me. If they like me, great. If they don't like me, problem.
was about to say, but on the flip side, what's it been like kind of having that support? Have you heard any incredible stories from people about their running journeys?
So many. And that is the thing that I love about the running channel, and actually was one of the reasons why I stepped away from it, which sounds bizarre, because we were hearing all of these amazing stories coming through. Like, people would email us or send me direct messages about how they had struggled with their running or their mental health, or something that they'd seen had sort of sparked something in them to go and chase their own goals, which is so rewarding to me, that actually I'm now studying to be a personal trainer so that I can help people one-to-one to reach their own goals, and actually see that on a daily basis, because I feel like feeding off other people's successes is what really motivates me.
Totally. But kind of along that same vein, I think this is something you've said in one of the running channel videos, which is that comparison is the thief of joy. And something that I think maybe gets a lot of people about running is that because it's such a popular sport, there are all these benchmarks that even non-runners know. They know that the 4-hour marathon is the goal, the 2-hour half marathon is the goal, the 1-hour 10K is the goal, and sometimes that can really get into people's heads, because they can see all of this incredible stuff online. They could think, oh, what if I am not that good enough? What if I can't reach those levels? What would you kind of say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, that's so right. And those numbers are so arbitrary as well, because the thing is, when you start running, everyone is different. There are some people who their genetics mean that they are so much better at running straight away, or they might, just people's training is so different, and people's lives are so different, and people's priorities are really different. For my sister, I'm going to throw her in as an example. She ran a half marathon with me. I was like, I'll pace you, I'll, stick with you for your first marathon after you've had your second child. She ran a marathon 6 months after she gave birth, and she did it in sub 2 hours. And that was the goal that she wanted to go for. But that was personal to her. That was something that she wanted to do. And I think it's really important that when you have your goals they mean something to you. They're not, I'm doing this because such and such who I follow on Instagram did it and I want to be better than them. It needs to be something that you truly believe in, that you really want to do. And actually, this goes back again to the sports psychologist Josie that I mentioned earlier. Your why, as it were, is what you carry around with you every day. It's your reason for going out in terrible weather. It's your reason for doing those 3 miles in the snow in the dark. And that first marathon, my why was because I wanted to do my first marathon, and I wanted to do it for Rob. And those whys are the powerful things. If you're then comparing yourself to other people, then actually your motivation can kind of slip a little bit. There's nothing wrong with healthy competition, don't get me wrong. There are people who are in my running space who I keep an eye on. I'm not saying it. But yeah, I think it's super important that your goals are your own. And I do strongly believe that comparison is the thief of joy. And that can even come down to comparing yourself to you. So if I were to compare myself as a runner now to where I was pre-COVID, pre-lockdown, I know that I would be really sad about it, because I'm nowhere near the fitness that I was at that point because of a number of factors. And so I completely wiped all of my data on my watch when I started again. And that was a really powerful thing for me, because I was getting these endorphins of hitting those goals again that I hadn't hit for so long before, because I was chasing after where I once was. So, yeah.
And kind of, in that similar vein as well, you're Anna the runner, right? You're Anna from the running channel, you're Anna the runner on Twitter and Instagram. Is that kind of identity ever a little bit difficult to deal with on the days that you don't really want to go out on a run, or, you've got an injury, and do you ever kind of feel like it's quite a difficult thing to juggle? And I guess, along with the pressure of that, of being Anna the runner, that you have to be 100% in love with running, 24 hours a day.
So I think it could be. I think it's a very dangerous territory when your job and your persona and your hobby is all one thing. I feel very lucky that I'm able to do all of those things as my job and my hobby. And there are days when I hate running. I did a session on Sunday and then had to go out and do a 30-minute easy run on the Monday. My coach had set it ahead of the marathon. And I remember just saying to my other half, I was like, I don't want to run today. I hate running. Why am I running? I don't want to run a marathon. And I'm so close to marathoning and I'm just so tired because marathon training is so tiring. It's so exhausting, but it is so, this is the point now where I know that I've trained well because I've literally run myself into the ground. Then you've got a 2-week taper and then you've got race day and that's your victory lap for all of the miles that you've run. So yes, there are days that you go out or you don't want to go out or, you know, you don't love running. But I think if you put your persona across as I love running, it would be tricky. But I would like to think that I'm my authentic self online, that if there are days that I don't want to run or I don't like running or it's not gone to plan, then I'd like to be honest about those, as well as the days where I've had an absolute banger of a run.
Amazing. And just, yeah, that authenticity, and it's something that comes across that, you know, so much on your, you know, profile. So thank you so much for that. So I have to say it's incredible to, you know, see people being honest about what it's like. And yeah, the breakdown, the tears when it's a long run, when it's a marathon, because obviously it should go without saying marathons are really, really hard.
They are. You learn a lot about yourself on a marathon. And I remember reading that before I ran my first marathon and I thought, wow, that sounds a lot of rubbish. What do you mean you learn a lot about, you just run a marathon? And then, yeah, when I finished it, I was like, oh, I understand now.
Well, we're going to come to a little break in just a second so that we can grab some drinks, go to the loo, and then we'll come back and do some Q&A afterwards. But just before we do, I just wanted to ask, what's kind of your bucket list of kind of crazy running things that you'd like to do?
Barkley marathons?
Okay. But with that one, don't you even like not technically like get the medal unless you get it under a certain time?
There is no medal. And
or the kind of recognition that you finished.
There is no female finisher of the Barkley marathons currently. So Jasmine Paris attempted it this year. She got what's called a fun run, which is so many lols. So if you run a certain number of laps, you get a fun run. But yes, there's been no female finisher yet. It will take, I keep saying this, I'm like, I'd love to do it. I am nowhere near the standard required at the moment. I think it will take me at least 5 years of proper training to get to a point where I can even consider entering it. And you can't even just enter it on you can't just go on a website and go, I want to enter this. You have to be invited to enter it. So yeah.
Okay, well, we'll look out for that in the next 5 years. In 5 years from today, Anna will be running the Barkley Ultra Marathon. You can look out for that. We'll take a little break now, let you grab some drinks and things, and you guys can think of all the questions you've got. As we said, if you're online, you absolutely can ask questions as well. Just stick them in the Q&A box and we'll get to them in just a second. See you in a bit. I think there was an online question. Should we do that one first? Yeah. Are we just going up and down just to double check the wiggly green thing is still wonderful?
Yeah, volume is good. So this is from Caroline North. She said, I'm running Brighton on Sunday and have serious paranoia. And any advice for my final few days of taper would be great.
Amazing. So Brighton Marathon is one that I've done as well. And you'll be absolutely fine. It is a lovely course and I have seen the weather forecast. Looks like it's not going to be too windy, so you should be fine. Paranoia is also completely normal in your final few weeks before marathoning. So you're a week ahead of me on your paranoia. I'm just getting into that stage now. So I guess really listen to your body, look after yourself, get a good night's sleep. You probably won't sleep well the night before the race on the Saturday, so make sure you try and get some good rest on Friday, eat really well, keep the bugs at bay, just keep doing what you've been doing. You've done all of the hard work. Literally nothing that you do now is going to make any benefit to your time or your run on Sunday when it comes to actually running. So keep your legs ticking over with some gentle, easy running if that's what you feel like you need. But equally, there's no amount of running that's going to do any kind of give you any kind of benefit for Sunday. So yeah, just go easy on yourself and look forward to the day.
I was going to say something I was kind of meaning to ask was, what's it like when you're running a marathon, obviously, but you're filming it as well? Is that quite difficult to coordinate those two things? Because you're like trying to focus on the running, but then you're like, oh, I better get a shot of me kind of doing this or that. Is that quite stressful?
Stressful maybe is not maybe the right word, but I would say it's another thing to think about. And one thing that I noticed so the first marathon that I did whilst filming was Brighton, and the thing that I noticed about that was that I was getting the GoPro out. I knew that I wanted to do a video that was basically mile by mile. So this is what it feels like to run a marathon mile by mile. So I knew that at every mile marker, I needed to get the camera out and record something, and then I could put it away and not think about it. But also I had to change batteries in it several times and carry extra batteries. But I also didn't fuel myself particularly well. So when you run a marathon, you need to think about taking on your own fuel, taking on water, and being able to think of all of those things as well as filming is actually quite an ask. So yeah, I did find it quite tricky to run the race as a race when I was filming it. So the ones that I've filmed for the running channel have never been sort of PB attempts. So my 2 PB attempts, one at Berlin Marathon the time before that, and Amsterdam Marathon where I have my PB, were both races that I ran for myself, not filming. That was a race basically.
Okay, do we have any kind of questions from anyone? Yes, go for it.
What about your nutrition, like your eating regime, nutrition? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I am the model runner, as it were, when it comes to nutrition. Just sort of going back to what Ellie was saying.
Very important to run on a Big Mac as well as running on very healthy things.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I don't follow a particular diet. I'm not, I'm not vegan, I'm not vegetarian, I don't have any intolerances. I literally eat everything.
No, but what about your carbs and all that sort of stuff? Do you measure those sort of things, especially near to race? You don't?
I don't measure any of my food. I don't think genuinely that you need to sort of necessarily, unless there are sort of, so when I was trying to go for a BQ, for example, for the Boston qualifier, there was so many sort of marginal gains that I could have made along the way for training that I did have the help of a nutritionist during that period. And that was all very much measuring macros and measuring your meals and things. So, if you want to go out and do these big challenges that are, down to tiny little gains of improving your running form, or going and seeing a physio, getting sports massages, seeing a strength and conditioning coach, all of those things added up together can shave minutes off your running time. But on the whole, day to day, generally, I eat what I like, I run when I want, and I don't let that side of things worry me too much.
When you say eat what you like you sound like, oh, I eat what I like, a burger, this, that, or the other, but you don't sort of say, okay, I want to eat like just a general healthy diet, or
I mean, I would probably say I do have it. Yeah, I would say I have a general healthy diet. Like my general diet is I only eat stuff that I cooked at home. It's not like I eat out every night or I get takeout every night. And when I am training for stuff, then, for example, if I've got a long run coming up on a Sunday, then I'll make sure that the meal that I had the night before has, a good quantity of good carbohydrates to help me fuel that. But yeah, I would say that I'm not the model. Yeah, I'm not a saint.
Nor should you be when it comes to this kind of things. Does anyone else have any? Yes. Oh, we have yes. Oh.
Yeah. So what is like your go-to running song, and do you have a playlist that's maybe shareable?
I don't know if you want my playlist. So yeah, my music taste is eclectic. So it will go from Taylor Swift to Rage Against the Machine, and maybe a bit of Chemical Brothers. So yeah, a little bit of everything. Basically anything that that has a good beat for me. Like I have music on all the time, so I will always have the radio on at home. When I've worked in radio, I've always worked in offices that have got the radio on, because you have to have the output on the whole time. So, you know, working for Heart Radio, Capital FM, you've always got like music, pop music playing. So yeah, I don't think I have a particular one song that I go to for running, but I do have multiple playlists. So if I'm doing a long, slow run, I might start off with a podcast to start with, or an audiobook, and then towards the end I'll put some playlist on. If I'm doing like a fast, hard interval session, it can be like quite heavy, lots of real fast beats. And then my marathon playlist is just stuff that like makes me smile, or like makes me think of somebody, or there's like a particular reason why that song's on there.
And that's got to be really long. I remember making mine, and you know, my phone died within the time, because and then I had no music, but it takes a while. So. Well, it depends on the person. For me, it took a while.
Yeah,
It's not Elliot Kipchoge, isn't he? He's only got a couple songs on there, really. What about anyone else? Yes. We'll go to
the injuries while you're running, when you get cramp, for instance, or blisters. Yeah, and what do? How do you recommend, for instance, when I did my half marathon, the first one, I injured my ankle on the 10th kilometer mark, and I ran the next 11, and I really struggled for 5 years after that.
Yeah, that is that's tough. That's really tough. And when I was running Berlin Marathon and I was so injured, that was in the back of my mind, was if I push this too hard, I don't know how big of a hole I'm digging myself into, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to get back out of it. And you know, I'm 34 years old. I'm not the spring chicken that I once was. And so
a lot of people would disagree that 34 years
is
spring chicken.
You know, as you get older, you know, these are considerations that you do have to bear in mind, and actually the body takes longer to recover. And I think because I've run so many marathons now, that was my 9th marathon, I'd done several ultras beforehand, I know how to listen to my body now. So I know what's a niggle and I know what's an injury, and I knew that was an injury, and I knew that I couldn't do any more than what I was doing. And so I sort of held back on running at that point. I'm really fortunate that I've never really experienced cramp when I've run. I know that is something that a lot of people do experience. It tends to, I don't know if this is a generalization, I've seen some scientific stuff that says that it tends to affect men more than women. It could or could not be because of a lack of sodium. And so yeah, I have been really lucky not to experience cramp whilst running. Blisters, on the other hand, ultra running and blisters go hand in hand. So when I ran my first ultra Race to the King, there was a foot workshop that the organisers had put on. It was there was a running shop down near Chelsea Football Club that we went along to if we wanted to find out more about blisters. I thought this is a really weird thing to be doing. Sat for an hour and listened about blisters, and I learned so much. I also learned that a man once died from blisters. It was a very long time ago. They didn't have antibiotics.
Well, I'll say recently I had cellulitis from a blister, so yeah, it happens.
And his name was Samuel Coolidge, and he played
the president. No,
the president's son.
President's son. Oh, there you go.
And he played tennis in a pair of dress shoes with no socks, and he got blisters, and then they got infected, and he died.
Oh my God!
That's how they started the talk, and everyone went, "I don't want to run an ultra."
Everyone sat up at that moment.
It was a really good opening.
Notepads out.
And literally, I've always remembered it. So the main advice that I took away from that was that if you feel any hot spots during longer races, like, well, I suppose during any races, but during sort of ultra marathons and stuff, the best thing that you can do is to stop, take your shoe off, readjust your sock, check for blisters. Does anything need addressing? Does anything need popping? Do you need to tape anything? When I first started running, I started getting blisters all the time on the inside of the arch of my foot. I knew that was where I got blisters. I just did. So I would tape them as a preventative measure so as not to get them. And that seemed to work for a bit. And now that I've been running for a while, I haven't had a blister for a very long time. So
Skin's toughened up to
I
it.
think so. Yeah. I mean, my feet are okay, but they're not like, you know, like if you were to go for a manicure or pedicure all the time, you've got to be soft. No, that's not my feet.
Who wants feet like that?
I have got all my toenails currently.
Well, that's something to be proud of then, at least.
I've lost many.
Yes, you have a question.
Hi, I'm Jema. I'm originally from Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm also, now this is funny, I'm also 34 years old. I started running in 2016 and I run 9 marathons as well. So
You're my spirit animal! We're the same person!
Things like the same, but we did it on other sides of the world. So also back home, I have a running club. We have more than 200 members now, and most of them came as beginners in the group. And we learned a lot from running channel. So I just want to say thank you because it was really inspirational for us. Like many of them had so many questions, you know how it goes in the beginning. And usually what we shared in the group when they have those questions was from the running channel actually. So I'm really happy to be here today and to meet you.
Thank you so
No
much.
questions.
That's okay. No question required.
Every single thing what you said, especially when someone is waiting for you on the marathon course, like when you just start crying. so I really understand all of that. And good luck on Boston Marathon.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're
Oh,
welcome.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that cries whilst waiting for marathon.
Always.
That's so lovely to hear. And I think the thing with the running channel when I first sort of started coming up with content for it was, what did I Google when I ran my first marathon? It was like, what do I need for fueling? Like, I didn't know what a gel was. Like, I didn't know what a gel was until probably about 4 weeks into training. And I was like, oh, I need to think about this. What is this? And, you know, asking all of those questions and remembering what questions I'd asked of my running peers and Googled, that meant that we were able to put these videos together. So it honestly means so much to hear that those have been helpful to other people
Yeah,
as
of course,
well.
a lot. Thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much. Anyone over here have a question? Oh, yes, we'll go for the sofa.
So I'm 34 as well.
Go on.
I started running when I was 29, 30, but I haven't yet done a marathon. I did my
Yet being the
Yet,
important word
exactly.
there.
Thinking about that. I did a half marathon 2 weeks ago, my first one, and it was great. So really
Congratulations.
thank you. So I didn't exercise really during my 20s either, or run. And we talked earlier about how PE lessons like put people off. I'm just wondering, what do you think we're teaching children in schools, especially girls, to really hate sport and then not necessarily pick it up until later?
So from a lot of things that I've read lately, studies, press releases, stuff that brands are doing and working with younger people and women in particular, I feel like the main thing that's putting girls off sport, and I feel like I can relate slightly, is once they hit puberty and once they get their period, it then becomes a barrier almost to sport. Young girls become embarrassed about it. You know, there's the sort of smell element, there's the hygiene element, there's the, you know, how am I supposed to manage this? And it's a lot for a young girl of that age to deal with and to think about. And so I think an education piece with young girls in schools around that side of things to encourage them to stay in sport is really important. There's been some really big studies, Strava have done a study, Adidas have done a study, and all of those have pointed to sort of periods being that sort of point where exactly, growing boobs, I mean, you know, it's painful having to wear a bra. You know, I didn't have a sports bra when I was doing PE. I don't know about anybody else, but it was, you know, never even thought that. I remember being measured up in Marks and Spencer's changing room for my first actual bra, but never was it, you know.
And then you can see it through your t-shirt.
Yeah,
The boys
exactly.
laugh.
Yeah, and you know, it's all of those things that are almost barriers to entry for young girls, or put them off. And you know, I went to an all-girls school when I was younger, and now I live back in the same town where I grew up. One of my sort of to-do list items this year is to go back into the school and speak to those girls that are now there, to kind of be like, don't be like me. Like, if you enjoy sport, or if you want to, you know, get into it or continue it, then don't let these things be barriers, because you know, I kind of wish, I know that I'd be a better runner now if I continued running when I was younger. And I, you know, there are things now as well, like park run and junior park run. So junior park run's so cute. I think it's 4-year-olds to 14-year-olds, and they run like 3k on a Sunday. I've been with my friends' kids a couple of times, and it is honestly the sweetest thing. And like, but even my niece, so my niece is 6, and every time I go round to stay with my sister on a Sunday morning, she'll come downstairs and she'll go, Auntie Anna, are you running today? Because she knows that that's what I do. And my sister will take her out running with her. And it's, you know, if you see these sorts of things happening around you, you're influenced by them as young people and as young girls, that maybe that's the answer, that, you know, you'll probably be inspiring little girls when you go out on your run. You know, they'll be with their mums and they'll be like, Mummy, why is that girl running? And she'll be like,
Where's she going?
yeah, who is she running away from? So yeah, I hope that, you know, with the conversations around women in sport, periods, menopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, all of these things becoming less taboo, hopefully it becomes more inclusive, sport becomes more inclusive for all women of all ages.
I think one of the problems with sport is, by its nature, especially in schools, it's competitive. Not everyone wants to compete. I was crap at sports, so I didn't compete. And I resented every moment I had to spend there. They need to change the emphasis to sport being part of your identity, not competition. Because for 10% maybe they can compete and they love it, but the others just drop away because they don't want to compete. When actually they're denying themselves something like the running, which is a personal challenge, not a sporting challenge.
Absolutely.
And that's really important to get that across, I think, in schools.
Yeah, I think you're completely right there, because you know, if you look back to remembering when you were competing at sports day, I was never picked on teams on the sports day thing. Like literally I would get put on to run the 800 meters because nobody else wanted to run it because it was too far, so they knew that I'd come last, but at least they'd have somebody from the class running it. And I actually came second in the 800 meters because the girl who was tipped to win fell over with 100 meters to go and I overtook her, but I was on for last place. So, you know, and that is so demoralizing as a youngster, to be that person that gets put on the team to come last in the 800 meters to tick a box. That you're so right that that competitive element isn't in everyone, it's not in your nature, but that healthier lifestyle of being outdoors, being in the fresh air, especially now that, you know, technology is such a big part of our lives and young people's lives. You know, kids sat on tablets, kids, you know, playing on computers, watching TV and stuff.
And denying themselves the fun of sport without the competitiveness. There's a distinction they've got to hit there.
Yeah.
Of course, most sports teachers in schools are competitive also. That's how they teach.
It's in their nature to be competitive as teachers.
Yeah, thank you, Roz.
Can I just share something? I'm so glad to be here tonight. It's the best thing I've heard. You know, we do a lot of talks ourselves, and we go, thank you for inviting us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Brilliant. You know, one reason being Nicola has always been a runner, but something happened to her. She had a stroke a year and a half ago, and when she came out of the hospital, sorry, without your permission, I'm sharing it, she couldn't even walk 5 steps. She just couldn't walk. She didn't even know where she was. From that time, I remember her saying to me, you know, I'm never going to be able to run again. And my running days are over. My running days are over. She would say this repeatedly. And I would tell her, no, don't set yourself any limits. You never know. And today she runs like 8 to 10 kilometers every second day. And to me, this is it. This is, you guys are crazy. But, you know, good kind of crazy. This is what we need, right? And this is so inspiring and so motivating for all of us. So thank you.
When you're talking about the kids, I think exercise, whatever it's running, everything like that, helps you cognitively. It helped me cognitively 100%. And I really believe that it helps the brain build pathways and everything like that. And that's, sorry, there's more to competition. Like, it's about your body being fit. It's about mind and body. And I really believe in it. And I think that's what they need to teach our children. You know, competition, of course, because we want our Olympians to win and whatever. But I think just as a general thing, I think we need to teach like I thought about nutrition before, nutrition, fitness. It's about, and then you learn to love your body and feel good in your body, however your body grows during puberty. You know what I mean? Like, and all of that thing. I think it's really, really important for our youth. Yeah. And I think that's not what's. I mean, I grew up in New Zealand. It wasn't taught in New Zealand. It was very, competitive sports, of course. You know, I don't know what it's like here, but I think it's pretty similar. But I think that if I had other, particularly young girls, I think, got taught about how to. When I say love your body, it's a little bit whatever, but I'm talking about loving our body because it's fit, it's healthy, we put in healthy things, and knowing what those healthy things we put in our body, and knowing that, and it doesn't matter what we do, what we like, whether it's dancing, whether it's running, whether it's whatever it is, but we just don't get taught that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, Tevin, go.
So I haven't run any marathons. I keep saying it's on my bucket list, something to do. I keep downloading those programs, and I do a few weeks. I get an injury and I never go out again. How do I get over that? I think it's probably a block in my own mind because I think I can't do it, and that kind of like tells me not to do it. But how do you get back up and then I keep running?
Yeah, I think so that's super common, and I think so without knowing your full sort of background when it comes to running and fitness and strength, it's hard to know sort of where that sort of weakness or that injury is coming from, and why it is that you get to a certain point and then you can't carry on because of an injury. I think if it was a motivational thing, I think where you sort of do a few weeks and then you're like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. I think that's a completely different situation. I think the thing is with running is that runners who do well at running do more than running. So strength and conditioning, so doing sort of, it doesn't need to be lifting heavy weights in the gym, it can be as simple as a yoga class a week, stretching out, it can be like a body pump class or some kind of strengthening exercises, some kind of, there's so many classes that you can get like on your phone now where it's just body weight exercises, lunges, squats, anything that's going to build up your strength that will then support your body through the impact that you put it through running. So it might be a fact that maybe you might look at doing a bit of strength work before you start a plan, or start off building what's called base miles before you dive into a marathon training plan. Look at running a shorter distance race to start with, so maybe build up to a 10k race first. But I think the main thing is not to rush into these things. I was very fortunate in the fact that I went from couch to marathon basically in 5 months. Would not recommend. Don't
stick to the couch to 5k in 5 months. Yeah.
So building up that sort of base level, a lot of marathon plans will say like, if you can already run for X amount of time, or if you are already running X amount of miles per week. So that base level fitness of being able to tick over and sort of running a few times per week without pain, without injury, is really key to going into it. If it's the same injury that keeps coming back, it might be worth going to see a physio to try and figure out what it is that's causing. It might be an imbalance, it might be something to do with your running form, it might be something to do with your trainers, or it might be something to do with your biomechanics. I hope that helps.
I think, I'm not sure, unless there's another question, I think it might be a good idea to, we have what? Yes, absolutely. No, absolutely, go for it. I won't make you do it in one sentence or less, don't worry.
Thank you. So I'm 28 right now, and I so feel like marathons are so far from me, and I can't wait to be 34 and be like,
I've done that. Yeah.
So that was the best sentence I think you could have said. But what would be probably like an opposite, the worst advice? Like, what should we absolutely ignore?
I feel like runners get so much advice, right?
Yeah.
Should we just like look the other way, blinders on?
What's the worst advice? The worst advice is running is bad for your knees.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, what's the worst advice? Oh, I know. Here's a really good one. Lots of runners run all of their runs at too fast of a pace. They'll go out and they'll do their runs, every run, as hard as they can because they think that that's the best way to get fast. It's not. The best way to get fast is to do a nice balance of running. So some of your runs will be super easy, and when you start out, that might look like a fast walk. It might be a mix of running and walking, but it's certainly nothing more than a pace that you can hold a conversation at. And 80% of your runs should be at that pace. So if you're trying to run a certain pace, or you're trying to run faster or whatever, run slower. Don't run faster.
That's the kind of advice we all wanted, isn't it? Don't have to run harder. You can run slower and be more relaxed about it. Well, that's basically what we've got time for this evening. Can we give our speaker a big round of applause? Thank you so much, Anna, for joining us at the Trouble Club this evening. It's just been absolutely amazing to have you. And thank you to everyone who joined us this evening. Thank you to Mortimer House for being our wonderful host. Thank you for turning the lights off slightly. Did everyone notice that when they turned it off? Yeah, they're automatic. They do it every time we come, and they say they can't stop it from happening. So we have to go and turn the lights back on. It's not actually a hint that they want us to go. It's fine. But yes, I think our next Trouble event is actually with Elif Shafak, which is in a week's time. I think it might be sold out, but do check on the website just in case. And then of course we've got New York after that for those lucky enough to be joining us there. But yes, thank you so much to everyone who's watching online, and yes, we hope you all have a wonderful evening, and see you soon. Bye.